There we go. And now we're in. So thank you so much for swinging by today.
I'm very happy to be here with you, Ryan.
Yeah, let me just move that a little bit more over. There you go. Perfect. Excellent. Yeah, no, we got the sun back in LA.
Love it. I'm so happy. I feel happy when the sun is out.
It's my first winter in LA, and everyone said that the rain was very strange. Like we don't normally get this kind of rain.
Couple years there was a lot of rain. I'm in Orange County, so I think there was more rain in LA than in Orange County, and it's been a rainy year, last 2 years.
Really? I guess it's better than super dry, right? Because then we get fires and things like that.
When I came the first year, I came to the U.S. in California 10 years ago, and they were in full drought. And I remember we came from France, from Pau, and we had 3 weeks of rain nonstop, all the way until December 21st when we came to the U.S. And people were like, every day, somebody was random in the street, friends, family. I hope it's going to rain today. And I had just gone through 3 weeks of rain, and I'm looking at the sky, and there's barely a cloud in the sky. And I was like, I hope it doesn't rain. And people are like, oh, the cars were covered in dirt. Nobody was washing them because of droughts condition. And the day it started raining was 3 weeks after we got here. And people were like, oh, it rained. And I was like, if it rains like this, it can rain every day.
It's not like European rain.
It's not a tropical rain for sure.
Yeah.
We had crazy rain this year though.
Yeah. It was interesting. I kind of arrived at the end of November and spent Christmas here, and then started with the podcast and things like that in January, but it's been going very well.
Good. And you've been doing your podcast from different region, from different place in the world?
So I started my podcast during COVID, actually.
Okay.
I actually started my podcast before COVID as an audio-only podcast.
Okay.
And I did about 6 or 7 of them, which was a lot of fun. And I try to do them always face-to-face.
Okay.
Because I feel like this is where the action is.
I'm a face-to-face person. You're the first one that asked me face-to-face, and I love it. It's a great idea.
I think if you're really going to get to know someone and like make a connection and get to really understand someone, you have to meet them face-to-face.
I like that.
Yeah. In a room, eye to eye, that's where the connection is.
Yep.
So I was doing podcasts before COVID, and then when COVID hit, I was doing these like Instagram lives. I called them COVID calls because I was stuck in Istanbul.
Okay.
For 4 months by myself, without any work or anything like that. So I was doing these like Instagram live conversations with my friends every day.
Okay.
So that kind of ended up like that's kind of similar to a podcast. And then we got out of COVID, and then when I came here, I decided I wanted to do like a proper video podcast setup.
I love it.
Yeah.
I think it's a great idea.
I mean, when you come to a new city, it's a great way to meet new people. And then also too, I have a nice following. So then people get to introduce themselves to my audience and share that content with other people. And if you have a really nice conversation with someone, and I get to learn about you and your practice and your career and what motivates you and things like that, then it's something nice that you can share with your friends and family and patients. And
definitely.
And yeah, so I just feel like it works out for everyone.
I'm really in that stage of my life where I want to collaborate more with people and just like create more a circle of friends where people that are like-minded, that thinks the same, not necessarily the same, but that want a better place to live in.
I think that's, and it starts with your body, right?
It starts with inside. For me, it starts inside.
So why don't you introduce to me exactly what you do? Because I find it very fascinating.
I'm a doctor of chiropractic. I've been a doctor of chiropractic for over 24 years now. I'm not your traditional chiropractor. I'm a chiropractor that looks at energy healing, intuition, that looks at emotions. So I have a lot of different pieces in my puzzle, and mainly I'm a holistic healthcare professional. I help people with their health challenges connect with who they are, what they are, so that they can have the best.
I like this a lot because I consider myself to be quite a holistic person as well.
Mm-hmm.
So when I have something wrong with me, I try not to just pop a pill.
Yep.
I try to think like, okay, did I drink enough water today? Did I sleep well enough? Did I eat vegetables? Did I, exercise? What are the other issues that might be affecting me instead of just popping a pill? This is, when I came to the United States, it's amazing how much of like a pill popping culture this is. Everyone just wants to take a pill and like get over it like right away. But there's way more to it.
I think once you start to understand that your body is way more than this meat sack, and that we're not.
Meat sack. I love that.
I have a patient that told me that this meat sack is not working for me. And she's told me that this week, and it kind of stick to me, being like, this is the reality of a lot of people. And so for me, it's really important to, when you start understanding that you're that spiritual being on that physical journey, and that you can interact with the world and challenge this world and really like be part of it and co-create in the world. I think that's where you start being like, okay, what is my body telling me? And you have another type of respect.
I think so. Yeah, respecting the body, respecting your space, respecting your sleep and your sleep quality.
Your food, your sleep, your exercise, how your body feel, the nature around you, the connection that you have with other humans, animals. I saw your cats.
Cats are the best. Yeah, but also being out in nature is hugely important, I think.
Very important.
Yeah. Especially coming out of COVID, getting people back outside and exploring nature and stuff like this, I think is like the most important thing to feeling good.
It was such a crazy time where people got stuck inside their house, not moving, not doing a lot of things. There was a lot of good things that happened within the house where people got reconnected with their own families, but people got scared of the world outside and stopped having that habit of going out and being with nature, and started being worried about that nature and virus specifically and how they would get sick. So it brought a lot of fear in people.
A lot of anxiety.
A lot of it.
Yeah. It was a crazy time, but hopefully we're through it and we won't see something like that again for quite a while. So where are you from originally?
I'm French. I was born and raised in Africa. I was born in Algeria in the desert in a oasis. My dad was a military doctor for the French army. My brother was born in Libya 2 years later. And my first memories are in Burkina Faso, which is in a black country in the West African area. So I grew up in Africa until I was about 10. When I was about 10, my parents divorced. My mom decided to leave my dad and move us back to France. So we lived in France until I was 21. And at 21, I came to the US to study chiropractic, met my husband. And after a few years of chiropractic school, chiropractic practice, I took him back to France. And we lived and raised the kids for 13 years in France.
Amazing.
And we've been back in the US for 10 years.
Wow, what a journey. I mean, I adore the African continent, but I've been to like Morocco, I've been to Kenya, I've been to Tanzania, I've been to Ethiopia, South Africa. I haven't been to Algeria, Libya, and Burkina Faso, and obviously Libya right now is in a complete civil war.
Yeah, there's some hard areas still there. What I love about my childhood is that I discovered the world and I fell in love with it. And I find that this planet is an amazing playground, and that if we're respectful, and I want to take care of it, I want to make it a better place for all of us to enjoy it. But yeah, this planet is amazing.
It is indeed. I mean, that's one of the reasons why I got into making adventure travel television shows, right? Because I just wanted to explore as much of the world as I could and share that with people who maybe weren't able to travel as much as I could or explore all the things I found. But yeah, it's been a wild journey.
The world is a wild journey.
So do you have any like really strong memories from your first 10 years of life in Africa? Like something, I mean, did it really change the way you look at everything in the world?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
I mean, we had snakes in our backyard. We grew our own rabbits because it was easier to grow your own rabbits than to find meat to eat. There was bugs. There was a lifestyle, a quality of life that is incredible. And I was a white, privileged little girl, little princess over there. My dad was a very respected medical doctor for the French army. And we were very well looked upon. And even if we had a lot of money, people loved my dad because he was helping other women be pregnant, have babies. And that was like, I remember going in the streets and being like, oh, doctor, this is the doctor. And me coming by, them taking my hands and saying. So there is something special, very special. And seeing the difference in poverty and people dying of anger, health issues that very different when you live in Africa than when you live in California or in France.
Yeah.
Recognizing the chance that we have, and I think being grateful and loving this world comes from this, just like the chance I have to live this life, to be where I am.
It's quite important. I think a lot of people don't get a chance to live in a third world country or a developing country, a second world country, something like that. They kind of miss that opportunity, and I feel it does kind of, I don't know, when you experience that way of life, I think you end up being much more grateful for what you have and what you've been born into, right?
Exactly. When my kids were 13 and maybe 15, I remember them complaining a lot. They were saying that they were slave in my own house, that they had to do some cleaning, that they have to do some laundry, that they have to be helping and doing kids' chores.
Yeah.
And I was like, you guys need to realize how lucky you are to live how we live. And so I took advantage. We were going to Panama at that time. My mom had a house there, and I was like, we're going to go to a village in Panama so that you can see the difference in living, how you live, and you consider this as normal. And South Orange County is a big bubble.
Yes.
And I want you to see that not everybody lives like you. And after we came back, I never heard complaint about them being slave.
There you go. There you go. You still have a roof over your head, which is better than so many more people who live in this world, right? It's crazy.
And for me, it's just the part that to be grateful about what you have. And no, my kids don't have everything. No, they don't drive a Tesla as their first car. We don't have that much money, but we have enough. And I think in that enough, we now have to be grateful.
Yeah, it's true. In this amazing country of excess and of plenty, right? The United States is just, you can get anything all the time here. It's really, really a little bit insane, especially when you've come from somewhere else. Like I lived in China for 18 years. I don't know if you saw that in my bio, but
I didn't see that.
Yeah. So I moved there right after university when I was 22, and I stayed there for 18 years. Yeah. And saw some really wild stuff, but it did definitely humble me because obviously you have a country of 1.4 billion people. A lot of them live just like we live here in California, but a lot of them don't. And you get to recognize kind of, who was born lucky, who wasn't, who was, who raised themselves up and built their own opportunities and who didn't. And just
recognizing that we all have those opportunities, that it's important to not to jump on them, but to take advantage of those opportunities we have instead of complaining of the ones we don't have.
So when you were living in North Africa with your father, with your family in those young days, people were eating rabbits. Was that very common?
We grew our own rabbits and we would eat our own rabbits.
Yeah.
And my mom never said that we ate rabbits. She always said, call them chicken.
Yes, okay.
Because we were, as kids, very attached to the rabbits in the cage in the garden. And one year there was an orphan one that we rescued and brought in the house and lived with the cat and the dog and became our pet rabbit. There was no way we would eat rabbits.
Yeah.
And the first time I actually ate rabbits, it was in France, and I was like, this is really good. This tastes really yummy, and I really have a taste for it. And in France, we eat a lot of rabbits. And my mom was like, yeah, you loved it too when you were kids.
But she didn't tell you. That's why.
Kids protection.
Kids protection is good. Yeah, they say there's some joke like you're not supposed to name your livestock because once you name it, you become emotionally attached to it, and then you can't eat it. And obviously, if that's the world you live in and that's what you have to do to survive, you have to eat your livestock. Yeah, it's pretty strange. Like I find like people in North America specifically have a very strange attachment to animals that the rest of the world just doesn't understand. Like,
yeah, I mean, just a dog and how a dog gets stressed and cared for in the U.S. is very intriguing and interesting. After that, I'm not criticizing, and I don't want to judge. It's not my place to judge. It's just very interesting when you see those dogs, even just in Mexico, in the streets that have no owners.
Or I remember going through parts of Tibet and parts of India where like rabid dogs would chase you down the street and try to eat you. Like and that's not something that happens in Southern California,
No,
but it happens everywhere else around the world.
it happens a lot.
I remember one episode of television. We were traveling in Morocco. We were in the we were climbing Mount Toubkal, and we were in the Atlas Mountains, and we went up. We were staying in this little village, and they slaughtered a goat, and they cooked us a goat for us, which is completely normal for that part of the world. But people, when they were watching the TV and in the comments and stuff like that, were losing their minds. Like, how could you eat that goat? He was so cute and all this stuff. I'm like, this is how people survive.
This is how what you do to live. And in Africa, where we live, if you go to the meat market, there was so many flies on the meat that was sold at the meat market. Everything looks so disgusting that my mom was like, I cannot feed this to my family. I have to find a different way. And that's where the rabbit came in.
Oh.
Because she's like, I can grow them. I know what they're being fed. We can kill them. I know that they're just killed and taken care of in a very civilized way. And we're thankful for them being there. And there is a power to that.
Yeah, I think so. I think like owning the chain of your food, from start to finish, and knowing what you eat is something I think the rest of us have just given up on.
I know.
It's too hard.
I like growing my own food. I have a small vegetable garden. I have a tower garden, and my garden is right over the ocean. So it's very interesting because there's a lot of salt coming into my garden. So I have to fight the salt a lot.
Okay.
But I love growing my own food.
I think that has to be the only negative of living right next to the ocean, right? Is having to fight the salt in your garden. Because apart from that, it must be just lovely.
It's amazing. It's really, really cool.
So what was it like kind of relocating back to France? Because you hadn't really grown up in France. You spent your first 10 years of your life in Africa. What was it like kind of going back home and like reconnecting? I'm always very interested in like people who are of one nationality but grow up outside of that place, and then when they come back to their home, it's like supposed to be home, but it's not.
It's not. I never felt necessarily French. I always, at one point, I'm like, am I African? I call myself a child of the world because I don't see myself as just being French. When I came to France, one of my first memories is recess. And I remember taking off my shoes at the first recess at class and removing my shoes and started running on pavement because I was too hot in my socks. I was too constricted in my shoes. I mean, we barely wore shoes. And I remember all the kids stopping, looking at me. It's like, okay, fine, I'm weird.
This is a little bit different.
Yeah. It's like, why are you taking your shoes off? How can you run on the pavement without shoes on? I can, and I get it.
Yeah.
And so for a long time, it was hard to be different. It was hard to be weird. It was hard to not understand the rules of the games because the games are different. The rules of the society is different. The way you interact with people is different. You have expectation. How many kisses are you supposed to give? I mean,
I still don't know.
You give a hug, or you shake hands. In France, you give kisses. It's like, how many kisses am I supposed to give to who? So by the time you start to understand, to be part of this society, this culture, this habit-forming pattern, everything changed because you grow older, and something else is expected out of.
That must have been hard though, because I think going back to France like at 10 or 12 or something like that, like those are your teenage years, right? Which you're already really insecure. You're already messed up in your own head. You already don't know what's going on.
Exactly.
And now you have to like recalibrate to what you're supposed to be because you're supposed to be French, but you grew up in Africa.
And I didn't understand my French friends. I mean, I remember one of my French friends was, it was at the time we were a teenager, I was 16, 17, 18, I'm not sure exactly. But she was like, oh, my life is over. I'm like, what happened? And she's like, my cell phone usage, I don't have any more data. It was at the time where you could only have an hour of data or whatever. And it's like, I used it all. My life is over. And I was like, I don't understand. I just could not understand the basic trouble that kids would put themselves into. And we changed from dangerous snake in the garden to thieves, drugs, alcohol.
Yeah, totally different. Yeah.
And the danger was still very present, and you still had to be very careful when you walked outside. You still have to be very careful of what you drink, going to clubs because of different drugs that could be put into drinks. So very, we think the world, I thought at one point the world would be safer because there was no snake, no weird bugs, no dangerous looking people. I think the world was more dangerous in France, and I felt safer in Africa.
That's very interesting. A lot of people wouldn't be able to understand that, unless someone like you had been through it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's a hard concept to understand.
Yeah, no, it is. I mean, people were, when I first went to China, so I did my experience like yours, but I did it backwards. So I grew up in Canada.
Okay.
And I lived in Canada for the first 22 years of my life, played basketball, went to university, and then the moment I was finished with that, I left.
Okay.
And I was gone for like 20 plus years. And now I've just kind of come back to North America to kind of explore it. But I remember going to China when I was 22, and I loved it, and I felt very safe and very comfortable there. And the life there was completely different than the life here, and no one could understand why I liked it.
Mm-hmm. It's very different, and there's a lot of more basic needs filled. I think it's easier to fill basic needs than it is in the US. In the US, because of money, because of everything that we have access to, it's easier to be overwhelmed with everything we want.
I feel like the overwhelming feeling is everywhere all the time, nonstop in the US, because you're just being bombarded with advertisements.
All the time.
Yeah. When you travel, I mean, it's funny, when you travel in parts of Africa or parts of Asia and you don't see an advertisement every 10 advertisements a minute, or when you're walking down the street and you don't see billboards and things like this in your face every second, it's very peaceful, actually.
It's life-changing, and it doesn't make us feel so inappropriate.
Mm-hmm.
I like taking the example. When I was a kid, I thought I was very rich. I thought I had everything I needed. I thought if I compared myself to the other kids around us, I had everything I needed in my life. When I came back to France, I recognized that I had access to one TV show a day for kids, one cartoon. So there was one cartoon that we watched. I forgot what time, but it was maybe 8 p.m. So at 8 p.m. we were all sitting.
Back in the old days, yeah.
Ready to watch that one 10-minute show that we had access on TV. We owned a VCR. We had 3 tapes.
Do you remember which ones?
The Little Mermaid. Some kind of jungle.
The Jungle Book?
It was not the Jungle Book. It was John of the Jungle or something like this. It was just a silly cartoon for kids. And the last one was the giant with the Lilliputian. I forget the name of that giant that came to a world where all the people were very, very little to him. And at first they were afraid, and then they wanted to take advantage of him.
Oh, really?
Finished helping them and help the prince and the princess get married. It was a cute one.
You must have watched those 3 tapes like hundreds of times.
Hundreds of times. I knew them by heart.
Yeah.
And when I got Nemo for my kids only wanted to watch Nemo, and they watched it probably 100 times. And it reminded me of those 3 movies I had that, it's like, which one do we want to watch tonight?
So when you got back to France, how did you gravitate towards kind of your studies? Because I'm curious, what your friends were studying, and because they grew up in France, right? They didn't know anything else. So, they might have gravitated in towards various educational fields, but you kind of having a little bit more worldly experience, I'm curious how that kind of affected your education choices. Like, were you interested in different things? Did you take classes that were kind of a little bit maybe strange to the rest of your friends?
Not necessarily. In France, studies are very straightforward. And my dad is very scientific. I have a very scientific mind. I look like my dad a lot in many ways. And so for me, science and making things that make sense was important. So,
well, nothing really makes sense anymore. Let's be honest. It's a complicated world out there.
I agree. When you're younger, you want things that make sense. So math made a lot of sense to me, math and science. So I decided to go toward math and science because it made sense. And I ended up doing, after high school, a biochemistry degree, a 2-year program. And at the end of that 2-year program, I was offered to either continue or work in a lab to do some research. I had done some research. I went to Madagascar. I studied. I did twice 1 month in Madagascar at the Institut Pasteur for a stage for that biochemistry degree, working one time with the microbiology lab, and one time with the research lab to figure out like chronic.
Madagascar is supposed to be really visually stunning.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
My dad lived in Madagascar the last 20 years of his life. That's where my husband asked me to marry him. It's a very special place for me.
Wow.
Madagascar is beautiful. So to go back to your initial question of how did I get into, so for me it was I had to follow something that made sense. My dad was telling me, you're going to be a doctor. I was like, I don't want to be a doctor. I don't want to dissect cadavers. I don't think that's my path. I had passed out a couple of times when he was taking me into surgery. I thought it would be a good idea to bring a 14-year-old into a surgery room and see him perform.
I can't handle blood either, so I know. I
woke up in front of a big can of candy in his office in a comfortable chair.
Yes.
So I had tried that a few times, and he was convinced I was going to be some kind of doctor. And I tried to explain to him that, no, this is not my path. This is not what I want to do. And so, but I was still very interested in the body and the scientific aspect of it and how the body works. So I did that biochemistry more because I felt pushed toward it than because I had a very strong interest into it. What you have to know about me is that I've been guided. I've been guided since the age of 12 by an angel. His name is Max.
Max? Okay.
Max. I met Max in Djibouti.
Okay.
A day where I decided to go in a deep meditative state while we were driving. And I didn't know what I was doing. I just knew I was bored and I wanted to just go in the clouds and find a friend. So I put myself in that meditative state. I did an astral travel into the clouds and I met Max. And Max became my imaginary friend, my angel. And until the age of 16, I was call him all the time to me. I would call him when I was in classroom, when I was bored. I was bullied because of it. People would throw me stuff to wake me up from my cosmos and call me Cosmos.
That's the kind of treatment you got when you were meditating? Yeah.
So this guardian angel, I feel his push, his guidance throughout my life. At age 16, I went to a Silva mind control seminar. Silva mind control is a positive thinking, meditation, power of the mind introduction to really help you tap into that powerful mind that we have. And so using meditation, one of the exercises was to go into our mind lab. So you were going down the stairs, opening your mind lab and saying hi to your spiritual guide.
And you were 16 when you did this?
I did this, I was 16.
I mean, were your parents in this? Yeah. Okay, there we go, yeah. Because you can't find stuff like this on your own.
And so I opened the door and I'm seeing Max and I'm like, what are you doing here? And he's like, what did you think I was this whole time? And that gave me a chill, just paused me for a while. And then we resumed whatever mind activity we were supposed to do in our mind lab. That night in the hotel room after that seminar, I had headaches, and I had debilitating headaches for many years that I was taking a lot of medication for. That night I was told in my dream by Max that my headaches were not necessary anymore. We had a big celebration in a church where I was reunited with myself, and we celebrated, and I woke up, and I don't think ever again I ever had that kind of headache.
Wow, that's interesting.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
So,
the mind is pretty powerful, huh? And we know absolutely nothing about it.
We know absolutely nothing about it. So that's I think where it started. It started where I understood that my dad was a medical doctor, that he was able to prescribe medication for me for those headaches. That, yes, they were helping me for a while, but something had happened that night, and that consciousness evolutions, when that experience happens to you, there is no denying it. And so I realized that my mom knew something that my dad, the medical doctor, didn't know.
Yeah, they were kind of fighting the same problem, but from two different angles, right? Yeah.
So they had been divorced for 5 years already. So we had minimal contact. My mom was starting to use homeopathic remedies, more natural remedies in the house, tinctures. So it was really very interesting what she was doing, and energy healing. So at 18, I did my first training as an energy healer, but I still didn't think about it as a job. I didn't think we could make money.
You were more interested in just using it for your own self-help.
I was more interested for myself. I wanted to better myself. I wanted to, because of those headaches, because of feeling weird, because feeling that anxiety, not feeling normal. I wanted to better myself so that I could fit into that society. Because too weird, with kids coming from Africa.
Yeah, it must have been hard to reassimilate. Yeah,
and so the power of the mind at 16, led into the energy healing at 18. At 20, I started chiropractic school. But in France, we don't know anything about chiropractic. The first time my mom said, "Oh, I met a chiropractor." What's a chiropractor?
That's not a common profession?
We had 350 chiropractors in France when I started chiropractic school.
Only 350? In a country of what, 50 million?
Between Saint Clemente, where I live, and Irvine, there's probably 350 chiropractors.
I bet, yeah, because now everything's connected to the back and to your posture and to your flexibility and how now that's like, yeah, it's your back is connected to everything.
Exactly. So I think Max pushed me into that chiropractic domain so that I could understand how the body works, and so that I could have another piece of understanding about how this system works. Because yes, there's the physical body, but there's more to it. There's the mind, there's the emotions, there's the soul.
Is holistic medicine, is it very popular in France? No. But you came to the right place, because this is very popular in Southern California because, yeah.
I think people are really interested, and I think people are starting to more and more recognize the abuse of the medical system and the overwhelming of the medical system, and are not necessarily feeling better. They're covering their symptoms with medicine, but they're not feeling better. And they're becoming dependent of that medication to continue function.
And oh my God, the side effects.
And the side effects can be very scary. So people are really interested in finding different ways to function better, to understand what their system is doing. And that's where I come in. I help people understand why do you suffer, why you're locked, why you want to do this and you feel like there's roadblocks every miles. How can you achieve what you are, who you are, with more heat?
So after you did your chiropractic degree in France, and you were also doing holistic medicine courses in France, what then? When did you come to California, and why?
So I met my husband in chiropractic school as a chiropractor also.
Okay.
And when we were done with chiropractic school, I was a little bit burned out, being in the U.S., seeing how family were starting. I needed the slower life that came with France. I missed that slower life, and I had been in the U.S. for 4 years, and I wanted to see the difference from an adult perspective rather than a teenager perspective. So I told him, I'm like, I want to go back to France to practice. And he's like, I'm coming with you. And so we decided together. We moved to France for 13 years. That's where we had our kids. We did some holistic practices in France for sure, training to learn more about how the body works, especially the brain. We did a lot of work on the brain in France because it's very interesting. And 10 years ago, my husband's parents were getting older, and he was worried to get that phone call. Dad is in the hospital. You have to come now. And he's like, I really want the kids to get to know their grandparents. What do you think we go back? And so we decided, we sold our house, we sold our practice, and we moved everybody back to California 10 years ago.
Oh, wow, that's a big move.
It's a big move.
Yeah, that's exciting.
Uh-huh.
And I mean, obviously, I guess you didn't come back for professional reasons. It sounds like you came back for personal reasons. But what's the professional environment been like work-wise now that you're here in in California versus in France? Because I guess a lot of people in California are looking for alternative.
They're looking for alternative. In France, we lived in a very small village, in a very small town at the base of the Pyrenees, a place called Pau, and 50,000 inhabitants. Very small, a lot of rural activities, not a lot of money. I remember calling friends that I was in chiropractic school with, and they're like, insurance are not reimbursing chiropractic anymore as much. They're only reimbursed 24 visits. I'm like, oh, if you knew what I could do to people in 24 visits.
You wouldn't need it anymore, right? Exactly.
In France, there was no insurance. There was no coverage. People would give us 6 visits to prove them that we were good at what we were doing. We did a lot of extremities, a lot of hands, knees, shoulders, feet, and really helping people continue working a physical activity. When we got back here, I didn't have a chiropractic license at first. I didn't take my licensing board when I finished chiropractic school before I came back to France. So I didn't want to be a chiropractor. I first started observing how people looked at my husband, and he would come and say, "Hi, I'm a chiropractor," and everybody would be like, "This man, we know what a chiropractor is. We know what chiropractic do. We're not interested that much in talking to you." And I was like, this is interesting.
Yeah, why would anyone turn away a good chiropractor?
I think because people have that concept that chiropractic is just backcracking.
It's a good part of it, but there's more to it, obviously.
There is a lot more to it.
Yeah.
And my husband never in networking settings had a hard time explaining what he would do, how different as a chiropractor he was, and was struggling with that. And I saw his struggle, and I was like, I don't want to have a chiropractic license right away. I don't need to call myself a chiropractor. If people are going to, "Oh, you're a chiropractor," I know what you are. So I decided to call myself an energy healer.
Okay, yeah, that'll generate a lot more questions.
I wanted to generate questions. And so I called myself an energy healer until I realized that there was a lot of spiritual, religious people in Southern California attached to specific churches that kind of have that belief that only Jesus can heal.
Yes, there's a lot of people like that. That's for sure. Yeah, that can be difficult, I suppose.
And so it's interesting because people don't necessarily look at you and are interested in you for who you are. They're interested in you for what you say you are.
Mm-hmm.
So there was roadblocks there too. So it's about finding how. What I learned in California the most is how to market yourself.
Yes, I think that's very important.
And how to present yourself, and how presentation is so important, and image is so important. When for me, for such a long time, image has never been important to me.
Well, this is the land of image. You can't ignore that, especially this city. Yeah.
So now I'm finding my ways, and I started to find my people, and people are starting to hear about me, about what I do and how I do it. Understanding that I like taking time with people, that I like listening to you, that I'm going to be able to read your body to see what's off with you. Is it a physical issue that you're suffering from? Is it a mental issue? Is it a emotional issue? Is it that you're fighting your own self? And very often,
all of the above, all the time for most people, right? It's true. Like, we're all just fighting with ourselves all the time. Yeah.
And so it's finding the tools that are going to be great to help people figure themselves out, so that they can be more connected to their true essence, their true nature, so that they can express that true nature that is beautiful magic, and be really like a creator in this world.
It's very interesting. So I like this storyline that you have, like, where you kind of just rejected being labeled as a chiropractor, and you just didn't want that.
I didn't want that.
Yeah. And that, I mean, because most people, don't even think twice about it. They're like, yes, I'm a chiropractor. Yeah, I did my schooling and I'm finished, and now I can crack backs and help people. But you avoided that as a way of trying to, I don't know, find better ways of healing people, I suppose.
It's not just healing, it's allowing people to see you and to give you a chance. Because a lot of...
How skeptical are people, when you introduce yourself as a holistic healer or someone using alternative methods of healthcare?
I like what one of my friends says. Her name is Dali. She says, you should stop talking about yourself and let other people talk about you.
Yeah, I guess that's right. Yes.
Because it's hard to define what you are, what you do for people. It's very different when somebody else says, she helps me with, she was able to.
It's funny though that you had this realization that there's more to the body and the mind and the soul, than just what's in a medical book, and wanting to take a different approach to problem solving the human body. I mean, how popular was that, when you first came to California?
There's a lot of people doing it.
Are they good though? No comment.
I find that I find it very interesting. I'm very introverted. I'm somebody that likes keeping to myself, and I don't need to
talk too much about yourself.
No, I don't like it.
You're doing great today, though.
I'm getting better at this, but 10 years ago, I was definitely a lot more struggling. I think being here in the middle of everybody, that's so easy to talk about yourself. I found that everybody had such an amazing life, an amazing story, an amazing purpose, an amazing, I would meet people every day being like, I'm not.
Oh, really? Oh, that's too. Yeah, I mean, you do meet some incredible people in this part of the world. I mean, a lot of talent.
Exactly. And you start self-doubting. And then it's really hard when you start self-doubting because your brain wants to confirm that you're right.
Mm-hmm. Self-sabotage.
So it starts when you start helping people, that people start opening themselves to you so that they're going to trust you in what recommendation you're going to make. Because I'm not doing the work for you when you come see me. I'm making suggestion on some work you should be doing for yourself.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, that's you're turning it around.
Because it's not for me you're doing it. It's for you you're doing it. You're coming to see me to get my professional advice on what it is that's creating your issues. But in the end, it's your issues. You're the one responsible. I'm not taking responsibility.
No, you're just there to kind of help or put you back on track, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm here to make you aware, make you see how your body struggle, your physical body struggle because of decision you made, how your emotional is you're beating up on yourself. How do you have patterns? So that's the mind. How those patterns are taking you on this crazy, wild journey where you're not going anywhere. Mm-hmm. And it's like, now what's the strategy to break that going around path into something that's more straightforward to where you want to go?
Yeah, in English we call it like, what do we say? It's like a vicious circle, right? There's something that just feeds on itself again and again. Yeah, I feel like
so many people are in a vicious circle.
Yeah.
And so it's sometimes necessary to have an outside look, to look at you and to say, okay, you're doing this, that is continuing this vicious circle. Are you willing to stop it? The easier way to stop it is to stop this. If you stop this, this is going to have to change. This is going to have to change. Are you willing to do that?
Yeah. So it's like dominoes, like you knock one and then they knock the other and then eventually, hopefully you feel better.
Yep.
Yeah. How many people come to you first versus how many people come to you after they've seen a more traditional medical professional or been on pharmaceuticals already that haven't worked? Because I think still in this country, the default is people just go to the doctor and want pills. And then after a year of taking those and being miserable, then I think probably they would find someone like you. Or do you think people come to you first?
I would have said 5 years ago that 80% of the people that came to my office were like last resort. Like, I tried so many other stuff. Mm-hmm. I need somebody crazy like you to do.
Yeah, or just, I mean, think about it. Like, think about how crazy that is just to have a different perspective. Mm-hmm. And how afraid people are of that.
People are very afraid of it.
Yeah.
And now I would say that in the community I'm in, I have a lot of moms that I've chosen to homeschool. So to go with medical freedom, to make some different choices where they don't want to go see the medical doctor and they need some kind of practitioner like me that can help them navigate childhood issues, physical issues, their own issues. There has been issues because, I mean, I see men that just rode back down the hill and fall and tweak their shoulder, tweak their neck, and I have to put them back together.
Absolutely.
But this is a small part. But those are people that are already educated into that holistic mindset, that I've already chosen to consider themselves just not as a physical body, but as a spiritual being. And that if they fall, there's a reason behind it, and understanding where their emotion might be in the way, why is that happening to them, and how to fix it at the same time in a more natural, holistic way, without medication, without drugs, surgery.
And I mean, what are the kinds of like prescriptions that you would what are the kinds of activities that you would prescribe to someone who came in to see you? Like what are the variations that are possible?
It really depends, because the first step is really to study where people are at. And I found that most people are already doing something good for themselves.
Really? I would think the opposite.
So diet can be already something that people are doing good for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Drinking water is, people are very conscious about the water they're drinking in the area. I mean, exercise, a lot of people are already exercising.
Mm-hmm.
Often not the right kind of exercise, and often missing the stretching part.
Sure.
So stretching is going to be a big part. I do food sensitivity tests. So I'm going to look for if you have intolerance in the food that you're eating through muscle testing. So it's an easy test. And so if there's food that I'm recommending that, okay, stay away from tomatoes, stay away from gluten, stay away from dairy. Those are the basic ones. But it can be more specific to the individual. I'm going to recommend breathing, a lot of breathing. I find breathing being very good for people.
Just breathing or combined with meditative practices?
Often combined with meditative practices. I can recommend supplements. If there is organ dysfunction and organs need support, supplements are great to help people function better. It really depends on what's going on. Emotional work. We do a lot of emotional work. So allowing people to sit with their emotions and breathe into those emotions that are feeling bad. I love the concept of that emotional reality, where we live in a place where it's not something that happened to us. We can change how we remember it, the emotion we carry towards it.
Mm.
And there's different exercise that helps us shift that emotional reality so that we're more in tune with who we want to be.
Yeah, it sounds a little bit like, like we are not our thoughts, right? Like we have thoughts in our brains, but we don't have to action them. They don't have to control us, right? They're just there. And we can separate ourselves from them and ignore them or process them in a more healthy way. They don't have to become us, right? When we have like a negative thought.
They don't have to become us.
Yeah.
And we can say, I don't need that thought. I cancel that thought. This thought is not who I am. And let me reprogram that thought into something more positive. So saying, I'm fat. No, cancel. I'm not fat. I am beautiful. I am sexy. And putting it whatever you want in there so that you can cancel those thoughts that are not serving you, especially if it's one that are recurrent, that are coming back.
Yeah, it sounds like you're dealing with every part of the human body, including, the mind and the emotional well-being of people as well. Like that's a big job.
I started 24 years ago as a chiropractor, and I don't think it came all the way at once. I think it's just a little piece of the puzzles, and I want to help my patient feel better. So I've been adding little pieces here and there. Mm-hmm. That makes a lot of sense.
It's nice because I think so much of medicine these days, I feel, is so specific, right? And everyone is like a specialist. Like I'm a specialist in feet, or I'm a specialist in backs or shoulders, or blood circulation or whatever. And I feel like sometimes everyone is so focused on this one little thing that they forget to look at the whole picture.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I think that's the biggest problem in medicine today. I think it's just the separation of every little piece of the body. It's like your eye is different than your ear, but they can be connected.
Yeah. And it's nice that that you're helping people make those connections. And so you have a clinic in Orange County. Is that where people can kind of go to find you?
I have a clinic in Saint Clemente, a wellness center. where we help people recuperate their health holistically with different modalities and tools. And I do also remote work. I've been doing more and more remote work. I'm starting to enjoy it. I'm not a very tech person, so I've been resisting this a lot. But I found that I have access to a lot of reading. I can read people from far away. And I'm pretty accurate, and I find it very exciting. And people are really starting to see a change in the work I do with them, even far away. I do love the touching. No, I'm a little bit like what we were saying at first when we started, like the one-on-one.
You have to have it.
There is something very special.
Yeah, you can't. I don't think you can really know someone from a distance or through a screen, right? Like, I believe, and this is my own maybe bullshit opinion, I don't know, but it's like I feel we communicate more non-verbally than verbally, right? Like our bodies communicate with each other in
that specific state that you can put yourself into, in that meditative state. There's less distance, there's more connection, and there's less BS. We are all wearing an armor in our day-to-day interaction, so even in person, we're blocking. We're not. It's hard for people to be who they really are.
Why do you think that is? Do you think it's a fear of being judged or fear of being insecure about what they can offer to other people? Or
I think it's not being comfortable with who they are, who they really are, and not allowing themselves to be who they are because they don't find themselves good enough.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah.
So I'm not going to show myself to you because I'm not good enough. So I'm going to show you to you better with my armor on.
But then they're just pretending to be someone else. And that can cause other problems, I'm guessing.
So a big part of the work I do is removing those layers of protection and making you love yourself.
How hard is that to teach someone how to do that if they're in a toxic environment maybe, or they have a spouse or a loved one who's maybe, not helping them get through that, or they have friends or a community around them that are also part of the problem? Because I also feel like when it comes to holistic medicine and when it comes to working on these issues with people, I feel like you need to have the whole family come in for a session, or have like the friend group come in for a session, because I feel like dealing with someone on their own and trying to solve that one person's issues is almost impossible without going to the wider friend or family network.
I totally agree with you. I think it's important, if a wife has a problem, that the husband come under care too. If a child has a problem, that the parents needs to be under care also. We're in our environment. We're beings in our environment. And if our environment is toxic, our environment will have to change. And very often people that are healing recognize that they're the people that were around them when they were sick, or when they were in that toxic environment, as they move themselves into a healthier state, and that toxic environment reduces, that some of those people that were toxic they're not friends anymore.
No, you got to cut some people loose.
And it's okay. And you're going to make new friends.
That's the best part. Yeah, it is, isn't it? It's amazing how, because I've moved around a lot too, and I wouldn't say like I've really cut people out of my life, but obviously you move around geographically to different places, and it gives you the chance to meet new people. Yeah. And it also gives you the chance to see how people respond to you in different environments, and it's always very interesting. Yeah.
And for me, it's a self-reflection. It's allowing ourselves to look at ourselves. My daughter not long ago was like, "You're weird, Mom." And I was, yes, I'm happy to be weird.
I own my weirdness.
I own my weirdness. I accepted it long ago. It's good that I'm weird. And she shook her head and was just like, you don't understand, Mom. It's not good to be weird. And I'm like, yes, honey, it is.
Just got to be yourself, right?
You have to be yourself. God made you the way He made you. Unique, amazing, just the way you are, perfectly. It's not because you're not looking exactly like the other one next door to your neighbors or the person on the screen that you're looking at, that you're not perfect in.
It's funny, when I was growing up in North America, there was a very big culture around what we would call like keeping up with the Joneses, which means like competing with your next door neighbor, right? So if your next door neighbor has a Honda, you have to have a Porsche. If your next door neighbor has a Porsche, you have to have a Ferrari. You know, if your next door neighbor has 2-car garage, you have to have a 3-car garage, right? And I feel like that was how we all lived like 30 years ago. But now everyone has that every minute of every day on social media, and you're constantly keeping up with and you're comparing yourself to these super, wealthy, super famous celebrities who have access to all the best skin treatment or physical training, right? And here you are comparing yourself to them, and it's such an unhealthy process.
It's such an unhealthy process, and it's just there to hurt and create suffering because it disconnects you from your soul, from that magic that you have with it. So if you can just let that go a little bit and reconnect to that magic that you have within, and see like, what kind of magical person am I? What kind of magical person do I want to? And how can I be that magical person? You'll become a magic.
It would be nice to see a social media platform or channel become, as wealthy as something like Facebook, but by making people feel better.
I feel like I don't like that concept about just feeling better. It's not just about feeling better, it's feeling real.
That's interesting. Well, walk me through, what's the difference between just feeling better and feeling real?
I heard a very interesting interview with Will Smith not long ago, and he was talking about his years as a superhero.
Mm-hmm. Was this before or after the Oscar slap?
It was before.
Things have been tough since then, yeah.
I don't know if I should talk about him. This is a good example.
No, I love it. I mean, I think he's an interesting person. I mean, obviously he had a moment of insanity, I guess, but he's still a pretty unique person. And I've actually listened to a lot of interviews that he's done in the past, and I think he's an incredibly mentally strong human being for all the things he's been through. So
exactly.
Yeah.
So he was talking about how for the longest time he was using diet, activities. All his focus was on having this superhero body, and he started talking about how he was not pooping anymore, or he was pooping maybe once a week. He was always brain fog, some anxiety, some depression, and all his family was suffering from different chronic illnesses that was not normal in somebody that looked so good. So for me, it's not about looking good. It's not about feeling good. It's about being real and connecting to even, I have a tendency to say I like chocolate too much to be a size 2.
Yes, I love it. Chocolate's the best, yes.
Yeah. So it's for me, it's not about doing everything to be perfect and be able to fit in the size that culture and society thinks is appropriate. It's really about feeling good about yourself. And feeling real, and you feel good because you do what is right, and you do what fills your heart.
That's interesting. So just doing what is right for you and doing what fills your heart. But how do you recognize what is right for you if someone doesn't tell you? Because I think it's hard for someone to realize what's right for them. It's hard for people to self-correct and get themselves on the right track. Because I think we all don't self-diagnose very well, right? Like,
Find your own black spot.
I think so, yeah, for sure. Like, I mean, how many times have you heard people be like, I don't have a problem? And of course they have a problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's when you want to, I think you need to be wanting something more out of life.
Yeah, I think we all do.
And I think when you want something more out of life and you're really trying to reach out to that more, you are in a path of growth and evolution.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair, yeah.
And when you start to evolve, do you want to evolve to fit in what the culture is telling you should be? Money, power, big car? Or do you want to take a path where you connect to your soul, you connect to yourself, and you want to be a better human?
Which one gets you more Instagram followers? I'm just joking, but just making a joke. But no, it's true. It's interesting because
that's why I don't have a lot of Instagram followers.
that's how you can tell you're truly happy. I remember I was somewhere and I was at a ski resort once, and there was this like 7-year-old kid like crying on a mobile phone, on a smartphone, and he was crying to his mom who was sitting next to him that not enough people liked his last post. Or maybe he was 10. Let's say he was 10 or something like that. And I was like, first of all, what's a 10-year-old doing on Instagram? And what's a 10-year-old doing at a mobile phone? And what's a 10-year-old crying because like not enough people and he's comparing it to what his other friends? Like, this is already crazy.
That's where it's hard. And for me, the first question is that talking to that child is like, why do you want to be on that Instagram? Why is it so important for you?
Because all their friends are on it.
And does that make it? If somebody jumps off a bridge, are you going to jump off a bridge with?
Well, there is a herd mentality, so you never really know.
So I do recognize that I live on the edge of society, that I don't necessarily care to look like everybody else, that I don't put makeup on, I don't color my hair, I don't care.
Mm-hmm.
Every so often I can see where a woman is going to look at me like, you're weird.
Mm-hmm.
Why are you not interested in what standards of society ask you to do? I'm weird.
Well, California is one thing, but also too, like where you're from, France. I mean, the pressure on women in France is just huge as well. Like California might even be a step down from France.
It's a step down from France for sure.
That is real pressure. If you walk down the streets of Paris, everyone's completely dressed up all the time, no matter what.
Never gone out in my pajamas to walk my dog out. I'm doing it now, but for so long, I could hear all those talk in my head being like, no, don't go out. You're in pajamas. You cannot go out in pajamas.
I like this idea of holistic healing and treating illnesses or problems with the body or mind as being part of a bigger system, right? Because I really do think, and I mentioned this before, like the medical system, the way we have it today, is too specialized. And I feel like when people have an ailment, they don't even know which specialist to go see.
Yep.
Like they don't even know that problem here isn't connected to that. It's connected to something else. And you got to go see another specialist for that because that's not his or her specialty.
And if you're hurt in the rib cage, you're going to be like, oh, I have a heart attack. I'm going to see the cardiologist. And the cardiologist is going to run his test and your heart is perfectly healthy. You're good. There's nothing I can do for you. But what about my pain? Oh, I don't know. It's not a hard thing.
Someone else's department.
You have to figure, should I see? I don't know. Go see somebody else.
It's wild, isn't it?
It's wild.
Yeah. It's like just wiping your hands and being like, not my problem.
After that, I'm really happy for you that your heart is working properly.
Yeah.
But okay, let's look at your ribs. Maybe it's the ribs. Maybe it's the rib cage. Maybe it's how you move. Maybe it's your body is not moving. Maybe your pelvic is out and your rib.
Maybe you spend 18 hours a day playing video games.
Because that happens a lot too.
One question I want to ask you is, what was if you can break up your time in the United States so far into two sections, pre-COVID and post-COVID. Mm-hmm. Or pre-COVID and during COVID, because we're just now kind of coming out of it. What were some of the biggest, most frequent problems that people were coming in to see you with before 2020 versus during COVID or after 2020? And was there any change or difficulty there? Because I really feel like before COVID, a lot of us were much more mentally healthy, much less anxiety, maybe even living healthier. And then we had this really dark moment in COVID, maybe drinking too much, eating unhealthy, not sleeping well, a lot of anxiety about what's going on in the world, about friends, family. And I feel like, are we now just kind of coming out of that where people are putting themselves back together? And I'm curious for you if you've seen a trend in the last like 7 or 8 years, kind of going into COVID and then coming out.
So before COVID, it was interesting because when people would call in and be like, oh, I have the flu, we would be like, come on in, get adjusted. You're going to start feeling better. Your immune system will work better if your nervous system works better. Mm-hmm. And so we would have people coming in coughing and getting worked on. And COVID hit and we were told you're not allowed to see sick people anymore.
That doesn't make sense. Nothing made sense.
So for a while, we respected that. Now we still have people coming because there is RSV, there is something going around. I don't know what they call it today. I don't care for names. For me, it's how do we help the immune system start working better? How we detox the body so that we can keep that thing out. So that changed a lot. And it's starting to come back where people are not as worried to come back in. And if we tell them, you're sick, come on in, you'll feel better after your visit. Anxiety. I'm seeing a lot of vaccine injuries. People that are going to have myocarditis, people that are going to have long COVID with neurologic issues. So I really like mystery illnesses, like things that are weird that doctors cannot pinpoint you what's going on, what's wrong with you. It's like there's so much wrong.
They don't even know where to begin.
They don't know where to begin. All tests are normal. You're fine. It's in your head.
Yes, it is. That's why we have to get in there, right? Yeah.
So I always done mystery illnesses, so that never changed. So people have a tendency to be attracted to me for that.
It's like you're a problem solver. Yeah, people come in with a problem and they've been to other doctors and the other doctors don't know what's wrong, and then they come to you and then you take a 360-degree approach and then help them kind of put things back on track, right? Yeah.
And making simple life changes, like, okay, you're not feeling so good, you have those headaches that are so debilitating. What about meditation? And it's like, I'm so desperate that I'll do anything, even meditation. Great.
I was speaking a couple of weeks ago to an insomnia expert, and again he was very focused on sleep and things like that. But he had something really interesting to say. He said Americans have the worst sleep etiquette of any country in the world. Like the amount of people in the United States that have televisions in their bedroom. The amount of people
that sleeps with their television on.
Yes, sleeps with their television on. The people who in America who eat in their beds.
In their beds.
The people who work in their beds, like with their laptop and things like this. And he's like,
we have those pillows that are so propped up that they're almost sitting when they're sleeping.
Yeah, it's just like, of course you can't sleep in your bed because you're using your bed for everything it's not supposed to be made for, right? So he was very focused on like sleep etiquette. Like the bed is for sleeping. Don't do anything in the bed other than sleeping.
I disagree with that one.
Yeah. If I'm going to be honest, he said sleeping and intimacy.
Perfect.
Right? But everything else do in other parts of the house because your brain is confusing your time in bed for sleeping and yeah.
And after that, there's all the lights that are involved with that TV, that computer, that iPad, those phones. People are opening their phones first thing in the morning. So it messes up with the rhythm in the brain.
Absolutely. The healthiest I've ever felt and the best I've ever felt in my whole life was when I was filming my television shows, when I was like out in the mountains or walking across deserts, because obviously the phones don't work. There's no internet access. You're not being distracted at all. And then, of course, you're waking and sleeping with the natural rhythm of the earth, right? So when the sun goes down at 6, you're asleep by 6:30. Yep. And when the sun comes up at 5, you're up at 5. And then you're exercising all day by hiking or climbing or whatever. And it's amazing just how well I was sleeping back in the day versus like just being here in Los Angeles or something like that.
So going back to your previous question about what happened since COVID, I'm seeing a lot of people changing how they envision their body and how much trust they have in the medical system. And so I see more and more people moving into, what can I do for myself?
Oh, that's interesting.
How can I better myself? And I'm seeing even like young families starting to really change in that perspective. And the youth is very interesting to me because they're starting to be more educated in a lot of different ways. They recognize that all this internet thing is great, but it's not an end in its all. And I think we're going to start seeing a shift in consciousness in the youth that is going to bring a different awakening.
That's interesting. And you think that's a direct result of like COVID and everyone just expecting a jab in the arm to solve all of our problems when it doesn't?
When it creates more issues enough.
Yeah. It's interesting. Yeah. I mean, because if everyone takes care of their bodies, eats well, sleeps well, exercises, our immune system is enough to take care of ourselves. We don't need to all go into some kind of crazy panic all the time. Yeah. That makes total sense to me.
They make this too.
Just yeah, it's I guess it's just more difficult to monetize than a vaccine or something like that.
For sure. Before COVID, I really thought something was wrong with me. I thought I was weird. I knew I was weird. I accepted I was weird, but I really thought deeply that something was wrong within myself. Why was I so attracted to this natural health? Why I was not interested in money or power? Why would I care more for nature? Where would that interest coming from? I thought something was wrong off with me. And when COVID hit, and then when I started looking into a little bit what's going on within the system, with the political, the financial, the education, the health system, I started recognizing that I was not the one that was wrong, that the world culture had spin off in a weird way, in an off way. And I think this event is starting to bring people back to a more natural mindset, a more respectful mindset that was a little bit out of proportion.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was completely out of proportion. As an individual speaking, for myself, I hate being sold something based on fear.
Yep, 100%.
And there's so much going on in the world, and just in my lifetime alone, that where governments specifically use the media to perpetuate fear amongst the population to get them to buy into a war in the Middle East or a vaccine or saving banks that should be going bankrupt but using taxpayer money. Like all this stuff, we're just being bombarded by fear on a daily basis. And I just reject...
Fear is good control.
Yeah.
But the mass and the people that are a bit awakened and that recognize that we're a little bit more than just this physical body, and that we're our powerful being, are going to refuse that fear-based control.
So you said earlier, a lot of people are coming to you now because they don't necessarily trust the traditional healthcare system.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you've seen these increases since COVID.
Very much.
Yeah. And what is their chief concern?
Staying healthy. I do preventative care as much as I do repair, so people come just to stay in a good shape. Mm-hmm. And I have a lot of small family members that are, younger families that are more interested in that aspect and in staying healthy, keeping the baby healthy. Because when you're not vaccinated in California, you're not allowed to go see a medical doctor. Medical pediatrician refuse to take you as a patient.
These are child vaccinations, right?
Talking about child vaccination.
Yeah, like which ones? I'm not too familiar.
And there's 100
polio
and one of it right now. So I'm not sure which one we're talking about, but
120.
MMR, FV, all those. So people have been sold this COVID vaccine, COVID jab, and we're worried about it. And I've seen side effects in their family members. I have a lot of patients that recognize that they lost a parent following a vaccination. Some people in their family got injured. So there's a lot of that in my practice. So when they see that happening, they want to steer away from it, but they don't want to be off no medical at all. I have so many people telling me, oh, you're a doctor. I don't like doctors. I'm like, if you want to stay healthy, your body will not stay healthy by doing nothing. You have to take care of it properly. And your body is like an old car. You were talking about cars. It's like a big Jaguar. It's a fancy car. It's an expensive car. How much money do you spend on your Jaguar? Do you take care of it? Do you even just change the oil? Do you put expensive oil, or you buy junk food?
Yeah. Yeah, people spend more money on their cars than they do on their bodies, right? And it's crazy.
And after that, they get to a point where the body gets sick, and then they need heavy repair on those systems. It's not always for me. It's not the solution.
How much of your practice is split up between preventative care and fixing people who already have issues? Because I think preventative care is massive. Not enough people are doing preventative.
30% is probably preventative. I agree with you. It's not enough. This holistic mindset is really about taking care of yourself and recognizing that this body is a temple that to have the soul, the mind, the emotion working properly, you have to take care of this physical body in the right way.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely crucial. And I think to wait until there is a problem is kind of too late, because you should already be kind of just following the basics.
And a lot of people get a first signal. Oh, I have a back pain. Oh, I'm popping 2 pills, like you said. Okay, back pain goes away. Woohoo! Month later, oh, the back pain, instead of taking 2 pills, I need to take 8. It's okay.
Yeah, and then you have mood swings, and then you're yelling at your best friend.
Your digestive system is not working as well, and then your feet, and then this, and then it evolves. And so for me, it's really important to start paying attention, and I think that's the holistic mind care, is paying attention to your body when it's talking to you. Don't wait for it to have to scream to you. When you're in pain, your body's saying stop. Look into what's going on. What are you doing? Think about it.
It's interesting, I've been rock climbing and climbing mountains like all around the world, and obviously we have to learn how to live at high altitudes, right, where the oxygen is very different, much less. And a lot of the people that I was working with back in the day, they would often take these altitude sickness pills.
Yep.
And the altitude sickness pills are very interesting because they don't actually cure your altitude sickness. They just mask the symptoms. They're supposed to, but really they just mask the symptoms of your altitude sickness.
That's what most medication does. It's just a mask. It's just a tape on a light that's on.
But it's very dangerous, because if you don't feel yourself getting altitude sickness, you can't make the adjustments to help save your life or to help you become comfortable in that environment, because you think you're fine and you're not, right? So you're actually, sure, you might be able to function and operate easier, but it's actually way more dangerous. Like I've never taken these pills, but I would much rather feel the discomfort so that I can make the adjustments on the way than just kind of blindly mask it.
I have patients regularly that comes in and is like, oh, I have some muscle relaxant. Do you think I should take it for my back pain? I'm like, well, if you're taking the muscle relaxant, you're going to have less pain. I'm sure of that. You're going to feel better. What you're going to do if you feel better, you're going to go work on your bike. You're going to go lift something. You're going to injure it even more. I prefer you have a little bit mild pain. You can manage it with some CBD so that it's not handicap. It's not an handicap, but you should be able to feel your body at all times so that you can do what's right for your body at all times. So I agree with you with your altitude pill.
That's just my little contribution to the field. So what would you recommend to people? What are some things that everyone can follow? People listening to this podcast, what are a few things that they can take home with them? That
for me, the first step is really recognizing that it's more than just a physical body.
More than just a meat sack?
More than a meat sack. And this physical system is an amazing system, and life is amazing within you. And that if you can connect to that, how life is amazing, you're already a big winner. And from there, you just treat it like it's a temple, like it's this amazing thing that you have, that is the most expensive car that you're going to ever have. And so what kind of food, what kind of fuel are you going to put into that body of yours? Think about it and put things that make sense. And not everything is good. Not everything is bad. If you want a glass of beer because you're with friends and you're enjoying it, have a glass of beer. I'm not against. But in reasonable amount.
Everything in moderation. Yeah. Everything in moderation, including moderation.
Including moderation. And every so often, get crazy. Crazy is fun. We need that wildness. We need to have access to that spark in our life.
How much of you think how much of the people who come into your clinic are suffering from a physical ailment that is actually, something that the mind has created versus something that's actually going on in their bodies? Like, because obviously the mind is incredibly powerful. The mind controls everything. But how many people do you really see who aren't making this connection between mind and body, and they're not seeing it as being kind of one?
I want to say 90%.
That's a high percentage.
I would say 1 out of 10 have enough consciousness that they know that their physical body is off, and they will tell me, my physical body is off. And I know I can trust them because I know they're connected. everybody else, everybody that doesn't know if they're connected, I'm like, I'm checking everything. Because, yeah, we create our own reality. I love Bruce Lipton. I don't know if you know about Bruce Lipton.
I don't know Bruce Lipton.
Is a quantic researcher. He talks a lot about quantic physics. He talks about genes and about how genetics affects us and how genes are affected by our environment. And he explains how we, through our perception, will activate specific genes so that we become what we perceive in our environment.
That's interesting. Yeah.
So it all starts with our thoughts.
So if we think we're healthy, we can actually manifest it.
We can manifest.
If we think we're athletic.
Just thinking is not enough. You have to take action. If you think you're healthy and you want to be healthy, you're not going to eat pizza every day.
I love pizza so much. That's my biggest cheat food. Yeah. No, it's true. So,
but it's not because you eat one pizza that you're going to be sick because of it.
No, that's true. In moderation, it's perfect.
Mm-hmm.
How do you think? I'm curious because I feel like in speaking with you, and in understanding your approach to healthcare, I really feel like the U.S. education system would be in a better place if every kid in high school had to do one credit in a holistic healthcare class that didn't necessarily teach them how to fix people or but teach people how everything is connected beyond just the single physical ailments.
I would start it way before high school. I would start in first grade and way before that.
All American kids have to go to Algeria and have a garden with rabbits. This is the only way.
My kids went to school in France. We were in a small village. In their classroom, there was a hedgehog and there was a rabbit. The rabbit was free in the classroom and would come to the kids, and they learned to respect that rabbit. It was a pet rabbit. It was not a food rabbit.
That's an important distinction.
It is an important distinction, but they learn how to respect it, how to talk to it, how to let it come to you. If you did so many movements that were scary to the rabbit would go away. The rabbit was free in the classroom to go spend the day on the lap of a child. And some child would get the rabbit all the time and sometimes didn't. The hedgehog was in a cage and they would pet the hedgehog, learn how to touch it. And the hedgehog would love the kids too. I think we have to learn from animals because animals know how to respect something that we as humans, I think, sometimes we lost.
Oh, we've lost it a long, long time ago. Yeah. So even starting with, animal care and animals in school.
Preventative care. I mean, when you look at what food they feed kids in schools, when we came back to the U.S., my kids were in 3rd grade and 6th grade. I was used to that school in France where there were 100 kids, that there was one lady taking care of those 100 kids for lunch. I mean, not all 100 kids stayed at lunch. There might have been 80 at lunch for school lunch. But she would make green beans, she would make grilled chicken, they would have a regular meal. And so I came here in the U.S. and there's a cafeteria. What can the kids eat at cafeteria? They can eat chicken McNuggets. They can eat pizza. They can eat burgers that don't look like nothing. The food in schools is worse than the food in prison.
Yes, maybe, yeah.
It's true.
Yeah.
And there's been research done. It's like, if we don't respect what we put in our body, how can we respect what we are?
And how can we expect the body to perform?
And
yeah. Because it's tough getting through life. We have to perform.
We have to perform. And life is so much more fun when we can perform.
Yeah, if you think because I spend so much time in nature because I was doing all this trekking and climbing all around the world, you really do feel some connection with the hunter-gatherer societies that we used to be, right? But before we evolved into whatever we are now. I think some elements of our society and life have evolved, but some have definitely regressed, right?
Yeah.
And when you think about our hunter-gatherer society, like everyone had to perform, because if you didn't, you let the whole tribe down, right?
Yeah.
And if you couldn't hunt, if you couldn't shoot, if you couldn't skin something or cook something,
or gather food or make fire, or there was a lot of different things that needed to be done.
yeah, but now it just seems like, you know,
We're in the entertainment age.
on a podcast. No, but like this.
We're to be entertained than others. Just feel bad.
Exactly. But I just feel like this idea of I mean, obviously we have high performance athletes that we watch on TV, but this idea that we all have to have a body that can perform at a certain level or execute certain tasks, or, you know, this has really been forgotten.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we take this life for granted, and we prefer complaining about what we don't have than working for what we want to have.
Yeah, that's deep.
And so working for what you want to have to have a body that performs.
And you have to be mentally fit too.
It's all I mean, for me, it's all together.
All together.
All together.
So, do you have anything kind of coming up in the next few weeks or months that you want to talk about or promote a little bit? Anything that you're up to? Because I find because we're just starting 2024. I mean, what is the rest of the year holding for you?
I'm going in Costa Rica next week for vacation.
Well, that sounds nice. Yeah, congratulations.
I don't do a lot of things right now. I don't have a lot of plans. I'm planning a muscle testing workshop where I teach people how to muscle test themselves so that they can connect better to their own intuition.
What is muscle testing?
You don't know what muscle testing is? Is just being able to test. So you ask for a yes, and my yes is a strong, and you ask for a no, and my no is a weak.
Oh.
And so I can ask, is this water good for me? Is being on the podcast here a good thing for me? Is eating meal?
And no, you're lactose intolerant?
I'm not lactose intolerant, but lactose is giving my digestive system some issues.
Okay. So muscle testing.
So muscle testing is giving you the ability to connect with your body and talk to your own system so that you can get answer in seconds on what's going on within yourself.
And how effective is that, or how effective have you felt that process is? Yeah. Because a lot of people would feel like really insecure asking their body what's wrong with it.
It's empowering.
Okay.
It's empowering when you can talk to yourself, when you can connect with this physical body and get answers from it. After that, people that learn sometimes needs my help still. It's like I have a lot of patients that did that muscle testing workshop that comes back to me and like, okay, I tested this. Can you test me too? I want to be certain I got the right answer.
But that's not how it works.
And I'm happy to test them. And for me, until you start trusting your own response, it's okay to ask for help.
Okay, yeah, I see that. That's interesting. People have to trust themselves first.
But it takes time when you have not learned how to trust yourself.
Well, there's a lot of
regain that trust.
Well, there's a lot of money to be made from people out there if you don't trust yourself and you have to ask people what's wrong with you all the time, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So for me, I want to empower people. I want to give you responsibility of your own self so that you can make better decisions for yourself. I don't want to be behind you and be like, oh, you can't do it.
I have this, so since I've come back to the United States, I've definitely noticed, so everything here is obviously very commercial. No, everything's very commercial everywhere in the world, but the United States has but the United States has a special kind of commercial, not like an advertisement, but like a business focus to everything, right? And everything here in the United States is really subscription based. Like, you know, they want you to sign up and become a customer for life. And I think people...
And generally, when you sign up, even if it's $5 a month, you're never going to cancel that subscription you got.
No.
So now they have a customer for life that's going to give...
And whether it's a doctor giving you pills, customer for life. Whether it's, you know, so because you don't trust yourself, you're constantly becoming a customer for life for all these other people and all these other businesses. And of course, then you're kind of draining your financial well-being, which can cause other kinds of stress and depression. And
stress and depression. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's not good.
Not good. So For me, it's really about changing our culture and really changing our mindset and becoming more in tune with ourselves, more respectful, and reconnecting to that powerful being that
that we forgot we are.
that we forgot.
That's interesting. Is there anything else you wanted to bring up or chat about?
I have a book too. I don't think we talked about my book.
I would love to hear it. Yeah.
Called Shattering Habits. And so it's a very simple book. It's a short book. It's a book that talks about the different steps that it takes to really transform who you are, what you are, in order to create better habits and better routines.
Shattering Habits.
Shattering Habits, and it's in Amazon. I'm writing another book right now, but I'm not talking about it because it's a work in progress.
That's exciting though. So your book, Shattering Habits, can be found on Amazon. I'll put a link at the bottom of the podcast so people can follow along with that. And that's amazing. And it's thank you so much for coming by today. And I wish you the best of luck on your next book and with your practice and everything. I think it is an incredibly important area of care that people just aren't paying attention to.
Yep.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for having me today. Really enjoyed doing it.
Thank you so much. Now we can go up here where you can see and we can shake hands. So nice to meet you today. Thank you. And we fade to black and we're done.